All right, you fret busting people. Today we have a special guest, Altan Aydin. Thanks for coming in today and sitting with us. Joe's on vacation.
Hey, thanks for inviting me, man.
You're welcome. This is gonna be fun.
It's really awesome.
So topic is evolution.
Evolution. Wow. Okay.
Speaking of, I read something. Check this out. I read something kind of really cool. You guys know what the Capuchin? Yeah, the Capuchin monkey. You ever hear of that monkey? You know the organ grinder monkeys?
What?
The organ grinder monkeys. You know what I'm talking about? Those little monkeys that grind the organs.
What? Oh, okay. Yeah.
Those
Okay.
things. Yeah. All right.
What are you on, man?
I'm not wearing the shirt.
I want that
yet.
coffee.
Right.
No, seriously, just read this article that the Capuchin monkey, there's a certain species in Panama, they said have entered the Stone Age now. Like they're using stone tools to get to food and different things. And the researchers are looking at like, is this, a trajectory for the actual, evolution? Like, are primates evolving now? It's kind of creepy though, to think about that these things are actually like, using stone tools.
Yeah, I remember seeing something a while ago where there's, and again, this is passing. I don't hardly ever sit down and watch TV, but I do remember seeing some kind of program where these monkeys were using rocks to bang on something. There was like this, the vision that I have in my head was this big rock in this forest, and these monkeys are taking these stones and banging on them to open like food and nuts and things like that.
Right.
And we're talking about just that.
Yes. Yes.
So, yeah, monkeys.
Gives me hope. If they're evolving, I might be okay.
Right. It's true. This is true.
I'm gonna be stuck in this ignorant crap I'm in. So evolution of the guitar, or at least of your playing skill. So I thought this topic would be fun today because it's something that I know students have asked me a lot about. Okay, well, as the title of the show suggests, how long is this going to take? Kind of get good. So
it's going to take 10,000 hours.
10,000 hours, yes.
It's going to take exactly 10,000 hours.
Well, how was it for you guys in terms of the getting to the level that you can actually be proficient on the instrument?
I'm still working on my 10,000 hours.
He's on 7,090.
Right.
He has a logbook. Damn it.
Right.
Next year, I might get there. Yeah.
I think the first thing when I picked up a guitar, and I was like a super late bloomer when it came to picking up this instrument. I think you remember, Tony, I didn't pick it up till summer going into my senior year in high school. And I picked it up because I saw so many of my friends' bands play. And I'm like, you know what? I have all these ideas in my head. I'm like, that's what I need to do, something like that. So my brother has a guitar, and that's kind of started picking it up. I think my first thing, was like literally all I wanted to do was learn this Green Day song, When I Come Around, and just play it live. I think that was like my one goal. But then what happened was I started learning Pearl Jam songs, some other songs, and I started writing my own stuff the next few months. And then all of a sudden I'm like, then I think Tool's 10,000 Days album just dropped, and I started getting into that. I was like, oh my, and that toy opened. I was like, this is like, there's so much. And I think the going to your point, the moment I knew I became proficient was when I sat down and I figured out by ear how to play Yellow Ledbetter from Pearl Jam without looking up tabs or anything. I was like, at that moment, I'm like, okay, I'm finally at this point. Now what? It's like, now I got to pivot, and now I got all this, everything in front of me.
Yeah. Well, it's when you, I think one of the things that helps many musicians early is to have a good goal setting practice where you have these goals in mind you try to get to. Because I know for me, this was a thing. I kind of in a way laugh internally when students come to me and say, how long is this thing going to take? Because I mean, unless it's changed with all the new technology out there, I mean, this is probably one of the few musical instruments, I think, that is a very frustrating process to learn. Yes. Like just music, just tonal production from the very beginning. Like, come on, right? I mean, when we were when I was a kid, it was probably like 8, 9, somewhere around there, and I think I remember telling the story once on an earlier episode. I was like on this really big dreadnought style acoustic where the action was at least an inch or two off the fretboard.
Right.
So, I mean, I spent 6 months just trying to produce an E.
Yeah.
That's on the open string.
Yeah.
And then trying to, produce fretted stuff. But I mean, really, when I started to get into the playing aspect and practicing and playing riffs, and for me back then it was like Sabbath and Metallica and learning those, like learning those records. I mean, we're talking years.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It took me years.
Absolutely. Yeah. Those initial goals of like, even just small songs and be able to play them. That was like the first steps, I don't know that there was ever a time when I felt as though I had command over my instrument, because it was such a gradual process. I had so many things I was working towards. With like starting off with chords, I know that with like for chords and open chords for me, the first step was making sure my fingers weren't touching the backs of the strings. That was a pain in my butt. But everything was a challenge for me, especially as I started getting into live situations where I know that I wanted to be able to do something for a certain show. For me, I knew that bar chords were nearly impossible.
They're very hard.
Yeah. So for me, I was in a band at the time, and I had been doing some bar chord work, but it was just like, it was bad. It was bad. Knowing this, I said to myself, okay, well, I'm going to write an original song, and it's going to be purely based off of all bar chords, and I'm going to perform it in 2 months. And that is my goal. I want to be able to get up on stage and feel confident about my bar chords. I want to feel good about it. And that was my goal. So I think everything for me was kind of this idea of, I want to be able to get up on stage and be happy with my work. That was kind of my vision and how I approached things. Just kind of forced me to make sure that I put my head down and actually work on things so it sounds good to the audience.
Yeah, and have perseverance to be able to, because that was the big thing for me. Like I grew up when I was, I was still in some ways like this. I get frustrated really easily with things I can't do immediately, right? So back, remember that guy, the Tree Man, the angriest guitar player in the world.
Clip? My God,
that was me at 10. I'm like kicking my guitar. I remember there was one story where I threw my guitar out the window, like a 2-story house. My Charvel went flying. Seriously, my dad's like, "What the hell's the matter with you?" I just can't, it was over a lick I couldn't get. I had to remember that this is a process. It takes a long time. For your hands to conform to the neck. And God,
I had a student this week. He kind of turned to me after class I was talking with his parents, and he kind of turned to me and turned to his mom and dad and was just like, This is hard. And I could see the frustration in his face. And I'm like, this is many, many, many years in the process. There's no way you're going to get this within the next week or two. You have to look really long term. This is a lifelong instrument for you. And you have to make sure that you understand that. Don't get frustrated so easily. Yes, definitely go through the frustration, because that means you're making progress. That's a good thing. It's good that you're frustrated, because that means you're into it, and that means you're passionate about it. That's wonderful. But don't let it get to you, because it's a lifelong process where you're going to be working on certain concepts for the rest of your life. That's like for me, for sweeps, I can't sweep for jack. I would like to, but I don't have a reason to.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
an application. Why? Right. I don't have an application for it. And exactly why. I would like to, just because I would like
just have it in your pocket.
Right, just to have it in my pocket and be able to kind of play around with it if I wanted to. I don't use it in my style at all, but for the life of me to this day, I'm like, I keep on showing students how to sweep, and I'm like, this is how you do it, and I go through the motions, but I'm like, there's no way I can be like, check it out, and they'd be like, wow, okay, cool, I want to do that too. It's more along the lines of, okay, this is how you do it, now you do it, and they come back in a couple of weeks, and I'm like, see, That's cool.
Yeah, yeah. Well, don't forget too, like the pressure's off us now as guitar players. Like in the '90s, that was the thing. Like I remember even saying this on a previous episode. Like we were in competition with one another to be who was more technical.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like those are awful years to be a guitarist because if you couldn't sweep like Jeff Loomis, you sucked.
Right.
As an overall player, right? No, that was literally the perception in the guitar community, and I think today it's just it's not like that. Thank God, it's more about your artistry and how you can do some how you can sort of get into being musical as opposed to being technical. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there's got to be a use for a particular technique that you're doing because everything you're going to work on will take literally hours to put together. Anything new thing you kind of bring in will take hours. And I don't know how the new generation is anymore. I'm in a way, the older I get, I'm becoming far removed from newer guitar players. But I know growing up, everybody that I was working with, everybody I was around, my peers, were playing like at least 6 hours a day. At least.
Yeah.
You're playing on there. I don't know. I could be wrong. Do you think people are playing that much anymore today? Are they putting that much time in, or do you think it's a different thing?
Probably less. I would think less.
Well, that's what I'm assuming is
because I think it's way easier. It seems like kids are probably I don't know if they're as big into. I don't know, Aaron maybe could talk about this, but I feel like it just seems like there's free programs like on your phone or like you can just get for free. They just make beats. So kind of like if a kid if that's just like visually stimulating, like you can basically just make beats just like there. It's like instead of having a physical instrument and playing that. I feel like back in the '90s you wouldn't have that. You'd have this huge like console probably like someone in your family to get you to make beats. Now it's all there. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents on it.
No, I agree. I think that, with technology today, it's easier to make beats and it's easier to kind of create things. I mean, nowadays they have things like Guitar Hero and Rocksmith and whatnot like that. And that's cool. That's
my God. Yeah.
That kind of gives kids and people a way to kind of get into it and kind of maybe spark it. But having all the students that I've had over the years, I can't say that there's actually too many who do sit down and play for more than an hour or two. To me, that's just crazy. I would, like you, Tony, when I was young, especially at that age, I would sit down for 6-7 hours a night. Mom would yell at you to come down to get food, and you were like, yeah, Mom, I'm practicing. Food can wait.
Yes.
And that was it. That was life. You come home from school and it was straight to the guitar until pretty much you went to bed. That's what life was. I don't know that is possible anymore, mainly because of the way our school curriculum has changed and the testing and whatnot like that. The amount of homework that these kids get these days compared to what we had when we were kids is completely different.
Yeah.
It's a different environment.
I would say to a degree.
Yeah, no. And I get that. But from what I gather, and sports play, I've kind of said this in past episodes as well, sports plays a huge role into it. For me, music was the only thing. I did run track for many years, but music was the only thing for me that I actually had involvement in, whether it was concert band or piano or electric guitar, it was always music. So I think
it's still there. I don't think that's changed.
Yeah,
I think there's always I ran cross country and did other stuff, but I was I would definitely be downstairs just jamming for 3 hours, and then this time I'd just be blasting it high. My distortion would just be so obnoxious. So my basement, my mom would just flick the lights like this. So she's trying to say something, and then I had to go up to dinner or something. That's so I did the same thing. At least in my me growing up. I feel like I put in hours, and and being in sports and doing all this extracurricular stuff and homework, being connected to having homework that's, but Tony, you probably know more since you're teacher. I'm sure there's more. You're constantly connected 24/7 now with like homework or something. I'm not sure how that is now.
Yeah.
But it was sort of going that direction when I was in school, so I knew that was what's going to happen. It's going to be like the main thing.
And just jump in real quick. You said, being constantly connected, and I don't want to interrupt you, Tony, but being constantly connected, there are a lot more distractions nowadays with Instagram, Facebook.
I agree with that.
Everything. Back in our day, that didn't exist. There were no distractions.
We wrote letters.
We used
what are those? What is that?
There's something called a typewriter.
Yeah. I remember the days when AOL Instant Messenger came out. Remember that? Yeah. And like I used to hate
your little discs.
Yeah,
like 60 minutes
on the screen. I remember when we had the State College studio and Instant Messenger first came out. And I gave my Instant Messenger address
that was my jam.
To students, right? And every time I'd get on the computer, you get those little boop, those little windows would pop up, and they'd fill my screen. I'm like, I'm not doing this, and I hit delete account. Because I couldn't keep track of one conversation, let alone 50. But anyway, I wanted to jump in with this because this is, I think, being a teacher in a classroom today. Everything you're saying is really true. But I think we're just kind of just seeing another version of the beast. I mean, when I was in high school, like 1990 through 94, those were my big years of musical development because I knew I was going to Berkeley. And I applied to Berkeley in 1993 as a junior. I went up for a competition. I won third in the country, I believe it was, for some piece that I wrote and all this kind of stuff. Well, anyway, my point was that it was important that I played at least 8 to 10 hours a day. So here's how I did it and I was a good student academically to some degree. I mean, I always, for my past discussions, I've always had a lot of love for kind of learning stuff. So it was important that I kind of maintain a good education, that kind of stuff. So for people who are listening today, especially the young ones who are thinking you're inundated with all this stuff in school, plus the social media and all this stuff, and I want to get good at this instrument, and I know it needs hours. Here was my formula. Here's what I did. And I'm not saying it has to be this way, but it worked for me. I got up every morning, and don't laugh, 4 a.m. on a school day.
That's impressive.
4 a.m. Now I'm 17 years old. Okay, so I got up at 4 a.m. Clock goes off, and this is how I got into the coffee thing. So I made a cup of coffee, went up in my room. I had a chair. I'll never forget, this chair was like this old time, kind of like it looked like a Victorian high back chair that my grandfather had, and I kept it in my room. And I sat on it, had a really nice kind of comfortable back. I opened up my technique book and I started working on chromatic warm ups, and I would do that for about 30 minutes. Okay. And then I would go into some other things, whatever I wanted to do. And I would play for 2 hours. So from 4 to 6 a.m., get ready for school, head off to school. Okay, so now I'm at school, and I had to find some time during the school day to put some practice time in. And luckily, I was in jazz ensemble and stuff. So I just was fortunate enough to have like a 30-minute block in my school day that I would go into the band room, pull the ES-335 off the wall or something, and just jam and play. And for me, like we'll address this another time too, but I never looked at my practicing as jamming. For me, there was an intention to practice with purpose, and I always had a certain thing in my brain saying I have to accomplish this exercise or technique now. Okay, so I put like a half an hour in there. Then I would go home, probably, I don't know, it's like on an average day, play for an hour as soon as I got home without any kind of breaks or eating or anything. Then I go off to band practice or jazz ensemble practice, right? And whatever I had to do. So I'd be home like at 7 o'clock. I would pump out my homework from like 7 to 8, and I would make sure I would do this. And I would play literally from 8 to 11. And I did that every single day for about 2 years.
Oh,
2 years. Yeah. 2 years. Now that was discipline for me. Like I looked at it like if I were a martial artist, and I want to become a 7th degree black belt, it takes discipline to do that. That for me, that was guitar for me. That was it. Like this is my discipline, and I will do it. Now, I don't know where I learned that sense of structure, but I just kind of felt that was what needed to happen, and I didn't know any better. But strangely enough, it produced results. I can't see students doing that today. Can you? Like the students I teach in high school, I can't see them. But I could be wrong, and I shouldn't make that generalization, right? Maybe some people are into swimming or they're into other sports or something, and they discipline themselves to work that hard. All the power to them. But in terms of guitar, you need something to take you beyond an hour a day. You can. And I hear a lot of players say to me all the time too, like I'm sure you guys have heard this, you can practice wrong and you spend a lot of time practicing wrong. I'm not so sure I agree with that. I think if you structure your practice time and do it in such a way where you're moving beyond a 2-hour mark daily, you're going to see some degree of results. And let's not forget one other thing too, before I lose this train of thought, that there's something weird about progression or evolution of your guitar work where you're in plateaus. That's how it was for me. Like my teachers used to say to me all the time, right? They would say all the time, to get good is easy. To get even better and fine tune it is really hard. So you make that first initial jump from being shitty to being like really good. That doesn't take long at all. That actually happens, it seems, overnight. You know, one day, I remember that happened to me. One day I just woke up like, I can actually play. How did that happen? You know? But then to fine tune or to get to that next level takes a lot of time and dedication. I don't know why that is. I just think it's just any skill.
Yeah. I think that there are people out there who have that. I mean, you have to think, you were entered a competition and you were third in the nation. So you have this drive at an early age, unlike many others. So to be able to try to find another that has that passion is going to be very rare. I mean, it's just going to be very rare. It doesn't happen on a wide scale. Where you learned that discipline, I think that's an internal thing. I don't think that you actually learned that. I think that's just you as a person. There are people in my student base that, there's definitely that determination. But I don't know. I don't see it like the way I would like to see it. But nor I don't think they can change that. That is something that is set in you as a human being, and you kind of have to go after that. That's got to be your goal. I have had a couple. I can't say that I haven't had any, but that determination, it goes along this whole thing that I keep on saying over and over again is that, if I have a full roster of students and I have 100 students, I'm going to say that probably 5 to 10 of them are actually good students. Those are the ones who are actually going to, focus and play their instrument on a daily basis for more than an hour or so and really get into it. Most people look at the guitar as a hobby or recreational thing in addition to all of the other things that they're involved in life. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, it's like
something for me very hard to understand over many years. But I mean, because I have a passion for it. I want everybody to have that comes in my door. I want them to have that same passion.
Oh yeah,
I get it. I understand that there's life and they have other interests in their life, but sometimes that's hard to sit down and assess.
Well, there's so many things I want to touch on, but like what you're to kind of piggyback off you, Aaron. I feel like I think the first instrument I played was piano. So like, it was one of those things where when you're like in elementary school, your parents I think everyone did that at some level. It doesn't matter. It's not a generational thing, but like I do piano lessons. I remember in middle school, I picked up. It wasn't a trumpet, it was a cornet. I didn't realize it was a cornet because I was like, why is mine all squished up? What the hell is my trumpet? I didn't realize, there's a difference because I was borrowing a family friend's thing. But anyway, I end up, I think like once I got to middle school or something, I think the teacher realized I wasn't putting hours in. I just didn't want to do that. But then I picked up guitar on my own because I had a passion for that. Yeah. So there's something to be said about that. You have that drive, and then man, so that was really. I mean, I can't imagine. That's such like a impressive. I mean, you're saying you woke up at 4. I was probably playing video games at 4 a.m. or something.
Yeah. Well,
that age,
Yeah. Aaron,
but I put it. Okay.
No, go ahead. That's fine.
It's like I only had time to after like school or something. I would put in just all the time like when I got back. Once I got back, I just plugged in just went away at it. But then throughout the day, I'd be listening. In between classes, I still be kind of engaged to a point where I knew that I couldn't play my guitar or something in between classes, but I would be engaged. Like there's some music I wanted to listen to, and kind of have some ideas before and then I kind of set that tone where like there's certain artists I listen to, and then that kind of like what kind of ideas what kind of things should I work on what kind of ideas can I come up with on the guitar? Like what kind of techniques should I improve on when I get back home? And then like boom, 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 3-4 hours. And that is how I worked.
Which is just as great. I mean, if you've listened to our, conversations we had in past episodes, we talk about, active listening is a particular kind of practice routine. Like you're actually learning musical techniques by listening and absorbing what other people are doing. And when I was 16, 17, though, my angle was like more like I want to have complete command as a technician over the strings. What do I need to do to get there? So I was just like crazy with it, But Aaron had touched on the fact, he said it was kind of internal in me. I think ultimately the byproduct of that is yes, right? But you got to remember something, and it's probably why I'm the kind of teacher I am today. I had a teacher, and I love the guy to death, but his approach was very deconstructive, very down-putting, and it worked. It was effective. He was the guy, I think in military, they say kind of dressing down is the idea, okay? He would sit me down and I'd play something like really hard that I'd be working on all week, and goes, all right. What do you think? Is that good? And I was like, holy shit, this guy's for real? I worked 4 hours on this thing. Yeah, all right. You could do better. Like that was his approach. And I'd be like, oh, and I got to go home. And why is this not good enough for this teacher? And I think the reason, and strangely, I did see results with that. Me personally, as an instructor, I was the other way. You guys know, because you guys have both seen me with students over the years. I was always, encouraging, even if a student didn't do something that I thought was good, I'd be like, okay, yeah, but I think you need to do this now, because I always found that to be better. But I think that rigorous practice routine I've come up with was maybe a byproduct of that dressing down from teachers that I've had over the years,
No, I kind of do that as well. I'll definitely have a student, I know that they've been working on something, and I'll kind of let them go through their process, because I don't want to be like, nope, stop what you're doing. It sucks. You need to start here and you need to do this. Forget what you're doing. No, I try to let them go through their process, and then I kind of say, okay, well, I know you've got this approach, especially with picking, with the right hand or sometimes left hand technique. It doesn't either or. I'll find that they're in some kind of bad habit, and rather than telling them to just stop what they're doing, I'll try to say, okay, look, I know that you've kind of incorporated this into your playing pattern. Just try to think about doing this as in addition. And I know it's not going to come easily, but at least start incorporating this into your practice routine, and it'll get easier and easier over time. There's many different kinds of ways of teaching. And some approaches are very good. Some are not. I see it on a daily basis where I teach. There are definitely ways that I see it. I'm like, that's not getting through to the student. It is. It's a product of who your teachers are and how that rubs off on you, and then how you kind of internalize it, and then later in years how you kind of respit it back out to your students.
It's funny when you said the picking thing. For those who are listening on the RSS feeds that we have, I'll just say this: when Aaron mentioned picking, all three of us just shook our heads up and down like we get it, because I'll tell you, that's the one thing. Even my teachers told me this, and people who are listening today realize if you feel this way, you're not alone. Okay, yeah. Picking is something you have to work on daily. If you do not work on picking techniques every day, you will know if you have a day off.
Oh my
gosh. You're right. Your right hand feels it. Like if I work on picking Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, take off Thursday, by Friday, everything you put in Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday is gone, or feels sloppy. Mm-hmm. Other techniques like legato, left hand, you can build them and keep them for years and never have to worry about maintenance to some degree. But when it comes to right hand control, man, that's got to be a daily workout. It has to be.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I remember, oh my God, when this was a long time ago when I first picked it up. I remember when friend of mine taught me how to do alternate picking, and that's just changed. Because at that point, I was just doing downstrokes, and I can't I can't imagine now I have this thing where I kind of do like a hybrid like picking. I use my 2-3 fingers here, and I do that without even thinking twice, like a natural thing. But I still remember like this like when I forget which song it was. It was a song off System of a Down that was just come out their last 2 albums, the Mesmerized Hypnotized thing, and the Mesmerized album had some song. I was playing all Rage Against the Machine, all this like heavy tuning down in D, that kind of thing. And then I remember when I did the hybrid picking, I was like, oh, that's just like the whole arpeggiation, all that stuff. I was just that just kind of changed my whole that progressed me a lot.
Yeah, you've evolved.
That's huge.
You know, I remember when you and I used to work together back in the state college days. Everything for you was single finger down tune, drop D stuff, right?
And he actually told me to go back to standard. You're like,
yeah,
hey man, this is cool.
Standard. Yeah,
it's cool, but I think you need to learn what's going on and stuff.
Yeah, usually first. But you know,
yeah. Well, I remember a pivotal moment in one of those lessons, Tony, was musicality wise, was when you saw I was going a certain direction. I forget what happened, but you're like, hey, you know what? You like this band. You should check this out. And you showed me So Real from Jeff Buckley.
Oh, yeah.
That literally was like one of those like pivotal moments. And I was like, it sounds like, you know, these crazy chords. I don't know what the hell he's playing. The voicings, it just kind of went in my head, and I'm like, oh, these are cool. And I started doing these weird kind of open chords that sounded like slightly dissonant. That's when I started really messing up that stuff. I was like, this adds so much color. And just because a chord sounds like, you know, kind of like depressing or something like that, then the lyrics are like, you know, uplifting. And there's like that whole musical artistry art, that musical there's so much. I just realized that's opened the doors to everything musically. What, you know, it's not just this is like heavy. It's got to be like, you know, like sledgehammer thing. You know, you can have you put finesse, nice lyrics to it. Yeah. Why not? It's possible if you do it right. And I'm like, that was like, holy crap, that's incredible.
I think Jeff Buckley's Grace is an album every student should have in his or her library.
I totally agree. That whole album, all the songs are just. I pretty much hit on every genre except for reggae.
Well, I just harmonically speaking, I mean, like, you know, if as a guitarist, right? And Jeff Buckley was not really a guitarist, so to speak. I mean, he played guitar, but everything he did complemented what he was doing. He was more of a songwriter. But I think what was cool is if you want like a lesson in how chord voicings can be weird but beautiful and expansive, that's the record to listen to. You know, I think
that's why so many people like the Hallelujah cover, which
by the way is not a Christmas song. I got to go on record and say this now, okay?
What?
Please stop playing that song for Christmas. Okay, Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen is not a Christmas tune. Listen to the lyrics.
Yeah,
it's not a Christmas song.
I'm surprised that anybody would think that's a Christmas song.
Oh my God, I have this Christmas channel on was it Pandora? You know, like when it plays rotation, and that song comes on the radio constantly. My daughters will go around and sing Hallelujah. I'm like, do you guys? Okay, first of all, my kids are too young to listen to that lyrically, but when they listen to it lyrically, they quickly realize it is not a Christmas tune. So people, please stop putting on your Christmas rotations. Okay, I'm done. Do you notice I've turned my pillow around, Aaron?
No, I haven't.
Look at it.
That's hilarious. Bring thankful back. Bring thankful back.
I'll get some heat for that tomorrow.
Yeah, in terms of like your picking patterns, you know, one of the biggest things that I talk about with my students to get them to kind of realize with their right hand is this idea of, you know, because everybody who comes through the door, including me, who at a young age was like, no, it's, you know, I do down picking. That's what I do. You know, this is it. I do down picking. That's no. Alternate picking's not cool. I'm doing down picking. It feels comfortable to me, and I'm just going to down pick everything. And I get it. You know, I had that same attitude, but it isn't until I take them through this speech of, you know, imagine yourself playing one day a 3-hour show, and you're playing at the minimum 100 shows a year, and you're down picking everything, And then I kind of get them to play as fast as they can at a downstroke. Let's take our bottom E and let's just play it as fast as we can. And then I kind of grab their shoulder and say, feel that tension? And now let's just keep on going for a minute. And then, no, don't stop. Keep going. Let's play. And they're like, oh man. I'm like, no, you're not allowed to stop. Like, keep going for a full minute. And that tension just builds. And I'm like, yeah, now imagine that 3 hours from now. You have to get used to this process of kind of using the upstroke to your advantage. Every time you go down, you have to come up. So use that use that up motion. And then this light bulb kind of goes off and like, oh, but I like to down pick. It's my way. And I'm like, yeah, but not anymore. So everybody kind of has to, no matter what it is, whether it's, chords or certain techniques, we as teachers have to go through this process of opening people's minds up to new ideas and helping them through that process, because all of us are stubborn. I mean, we all are. We get set in our ways, and
the worst.
And we all are. We get set in our ways, and it's very hard to be able to hear somebody, even though it's somebody that we respect. It's hard for us to take that advice and be able to say, okay, I'm going to try to incorporate this. I'm going to work on this. I'm going to focus on this. That is so hard for us to do. But it's so important.
Yeah.
It's so important for us to be able to do that.
Well, I was gonna ask you guys something. Have you ever just just stepped away from like playing an instrument for like a week, just take a break? I've when I went this 5 years ago. I went on a road trip up to a music festival up in the from like Southern California up to Washington State at this place called the Gorge, and there was like a 3-day music festival. And I didn't have an instrument, but by the time I got road trip, I didn't have like anything there. By the time I got to, I listened to all the music, and I got back home, I had so many ideas. I felt like I was refreshed. Like I didn't focus on I think so. Your mind is just like you just kind of get comfortable without knowing. I'd be used to doing two downstrokes and upstrokes, something like that, if I'm playing a riff, and then I wouldn't think of doing some other. I wouldn't change anything up, but then I come back and I start coming up these other ideas and start using kind of like finger picking, other things I wouldn't have done naturally. I think it was because I kind of I broke something, like I had a mental break.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys
I
actually helped me a lot sometimes,
Yeah, I think what happens is the ear has this kind of loop effect where you just become in a way you become sort of saturated, and it becomes you become used to just kind of hearing the same kind of stuff over and over again, and then you kind of go into patterns and do the same kind of things. In terms of taking a break, this is going to sound crazy. To answer your question, no. Really? In the early days, no. We'll go.
I can imagine.
We're talking ages 16 through 21. Okay, I played every single day without a break. Never stepped away from it. If we went on a summer vacation, I took the guitar with me. Okay, if I stayed over a friend's house, I found a way to take one of those little mini practice guitars, just kind of thing, and practice. That's how I did it. 22, 23, 24, I got more into composing. I had to distance myself from the guitar because I found my early compositions very much sounded like a guitar player tried to do an orchestral piece.
Okay, so that's what I meant. From a songwriting standpoint.
Sounding standpoint, I had to create distance from the guitar because my writing was based on mechanics. Literally, you'll hear even on the last week in the episode we mentioned that Seasons in Sorrow record I cut in 2003. Even that, it's guitar driven, but much of the stuff you listen to the whole record, the decisions musically I made sounded more like I picked the guitar up and just started moving my hands in patterns. And I wanted to get away from that. When I got into composing pretty heavily, I was like, I can't sound my music can't sound like it was written like a guitar piece. It has to have dimension beyond guitar. So that was really hard for me, going from a purely everyday practice regimen into creating some space and taking a couple of weeks off in some cases, right? And I went through a weird period too, where I actually didn't play for like a month. I just got burned out. That's a whole other story. But I put it away for like a month and came back to it, and I found that I was like, well, why not even do that? Because now I got to like come back and sort of build my muscles again on the instrument. But from a writing standpoint, yeah, I definitely think you could play too much. Yeah.
Yeah. That's,
how about you,
I
Aaron?
found some benefit from that.
Yeah, I mean, there have been times when I have walked in my later years, walked away from the instrument only because something else piques my interest, whether it's the bass or maybe it's actual songwriting. And then when I come back to the guitar, sometimes it kind of flows a little bit better. I think sometimes when I'm in it, I'm focused a little bit too much on certain aspects, or it's hard to kind of remove myself from the certain situation that I'm in. And then to be able to kind of take a break and kind of clear my mind and come back to it. Sometimes I feel as though, for me, I know that I've taken a couple days off. So going back into it, I kind of have this WTF kind of feel. I know it's not going to be technically proficient or anything like that. So I kind of jump into it. And sometimes it feels good. Sometimes I'll come into it and I'll have something come out and I'm like, whoa, that's kind of cool. I never would have felt that, because I have this kind of whatever kind of attitude. And I know that it's not technically good, and that's okay, because I know within a couple of days I'll be back to where I was. So I personally, I think it sometimes is good to take a break, maybe here and there. But that's for me.
Yeah.
I can't say that's for anybody else. That's just a personal thing. That sometimes I know that when I walk away and I come back to it, I do feel refreshed, and I do have this ability to kind of just say whatever. And it may be a little bit sloppy, but it does feel good.
It's not I mean, I'm not saying it's like forced, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, I literally like Tony, I went on like vacation, just like family or something. And I'm like, I mean, I probably need to get a ukulele or something. I probably would have brought a ukulele or something to mess around with. But yeah, I'm not gonna bring my like electric guitar, my 25-watt Johnson amp, and get evicted from a hotel or something. I'm not, that's how it goes. But it's kind of like, oh well, and I still think I still like, I go back, I have a bunch of voice memos that I record, and I tell you, I send you some stuff every once in a while.
Yeah, right.
I have these ideas, and I listen back to old ideas or stuff I made last week as kind of let that simmer in my head. So I'm not like totally detached, but I'm detached from when I'm on the guitar and thinking of songwriting. I kind of detach that part. I think I'm physically having the instrument in my hand. I was kind of thinking just from a whole musical composition standpoint, like what can I put a layer around behind it? What can be put in front? It should just be like bass heavy. Is a guitar going to be layered behind everything? So I still am active in that sense. I'm not gonna. I can't imagine. I'm gonna say I can't take a total break. I think it's impossible for me to take a whole total musical break. I think that's just how, when I wake up, I always think of things. So that's always there. I'm always thinking of ideas. So I never really take a break per se, I guess.
Yeah, I know.
But when I meant taking a break.
Yeah, I know there was a time for me when I went to vacation. I went to Florida one time, and I couldn't take my guitar with me. So I just brought all my notes with me. I brought all my, everything that I had worked on to that point. I was at that time working on an album. So I thought to myself, okay, well, I'm going to take all of my stuff and I'm going to organize it, and I'm going to write it out so it's actually organized. I'm going to take this time that I know that I have a break, and I'm going to get to all the stuff that I've needed to get to because I've been so immersed in my guitar playing. Now this gives me a time to kind of break away from the technical aspect of it and kind of organize my notes and write things down and listen back to it on the beach and kind of analyze what's going on and then write some more stuff down. It kind of gave me a way to say, okay, I can't pick up the guitar, and now my focus needs to be on my composition and things that I can kind of play with harmonically and things like that. It was a good opportunity for me to just say, okay, I know I can't pick up my instrument. What am I going to do with that time to the best of my ability?
Yeah, I think that's kind of a cool. That's a cool situation to be in, to be honest. Like, it sounds like, oh, I can't do anything, but like then you start thinking outside the box, and then you get really creative. I feel like you start thinking of other avenues and other, I don't know.
You know, so I think it's one of those things where, you know, as an older musician now, you know, I see where all this training and all this practice time I've put in for 2 to 3 decades has led me to the very things you guys are talking about. That it's about sort of the conceptual, hearing things, hearing multiple angles of music. When you sit down at your guitar literally is an instrument through which your musical ideas come out. And you're thinking, right, okay, I get all that. But I think for those players out there who are legitimately committed to becoming proficient on the instrument, which is kind of what I think today is about, I think there has to be a certain level of, can we get to a point where we're always refining our technique? And I think that I would have to argue and say, yes, I'm still in love with a certain aspect of being a guitarist, right? Much the same way that like a classical violinist would dedicate all of his or her time to mastering that instrument in a sense. Like, let's put it this way. I don't go to a lot of shows anymore, for a lot of various reasons you guys know about. But like, when I do go and I see somebody play, my ear kind of goes immediately to how their fingers hit the board. And I can tell within minutes if they're a tight player, if they're a sloppy player, if they're in command. I can even tell in their vibrato, right? How much command they have over the string, and therefore I can tell, how their tuning is gonna work. Like for instance, I wrote something I wrote. I think it was maybe in one of the blogs put on there on the website, that Steve Kimmock, guitarist who's really into tuning procedures, writes about this thing where he says the guitar is really out of tune, and if you really want to produce accurate tuning, when you're pressing a fretted note down, you push, like with your finger, literally push the string towards the bridge. And like with a microtone movement, you actually hear the string dip like a microtone, but it goes in tune. Guitar players don't really think about this kind of thing. They smack the strings. And you guys realize too, the harder you hit a string, you're bringing the string below the fret space, which means you're bending it a little bit. So if you're not careful with technique a lot, that the overall sound effect is that you're out of tune, you're sloppy. So my point is that I think the first step to being really good in commanding your guitar is being aware of how your fingers hit the board. And I dedicated years to this kind of thing. And I'm sure you guys, the more you get into this, you know what I'm talking about. Like you can watch a guitar player and know how much they practice by listening to them, right? You could see they're just kind of, some guys are great. They're fluid and they're smooth and they're really put together. Other guys are really blocky and they feel sloppy around the edges, and so I just think it's a matter of, for me, that process never stops. You could be both. I think you could be a technician and dedicated to your instrument, and be a writer and a musician and kind of put them together, but they all take hours. And discipline.
I think going back to what we were talking about in the beginning and the whole 10 hours thing, or 10,000 hours thing. I think that once you achieve those 10,000 hours, not that actually exists, but I think once you do achieve those 10,000 hours, that there is a sense of command over your instrument. And I know for people like Alan Holdsworth or Jeff Berlin or Vic Wooten or one of these guys who are just amazing at their instruments, and they've said as much, they don't practice daily anymore, if at all. They just kind of know their instrument and they think more musically, they think more compositionally, and this whole technique thing is not their focus anymore. It's more along the
Yeah,
lines of how to
sure.
speak with their instrument. So I think the 10,000 hours and putting your time in is extremely important, and how you go about those 10,000 hours is extremely important. You don't want to do 10,000 hours over 20 years time. You want to do 10,000 hours in 5 years time, in 3 years time. That's
Right, very
extremely
concentrated.
important. Yeah, absolutely. You want to
Right.
get to that point where you feel that you've had your fingers on this language, and you know how to make your instrument produce that language. That's extremely important. And then once you get to that point where you feel as though you know this language well enough on this instrument, yeah, you can take another 10,000 hours and learn it on a piano or the cornet. Um, you can go through that process and kind of build that up a little bit more, absolutely. But I do believe that once you get to a point in your practicing, that you kind of get this ability to be able to kind of just concentrate on speaking the language rather than actually using your instrument to do that.
I'd love to see somebody put 10,000 hours on a flutophone. I want to see a flutophone master.
What is a flutophone?
Those recorders that they give you in school.
Oh my God,
those thing. Yeah, come on. There's one guy out there that said, "I'm going to master this damn thing."
I'm sure Kenny G put that.
Gosh.
I know Jeff Berlin. You mentioned Jeff Berlin. He practices every day.
Does he still?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. He plays every day, and he plays with sheet music in front of him and exercises and different things. And he does it. I can't speak for him, but having seen the way he works a little bit, yeah. I mean, I think there are certain guys out there that are still looking at daily practice as it's just your thing. You just never lose it.
Right.
It's just part of your lifestyle. You wake up and you play. Segovia, Andre Segovia, before he died,
right.
He used to talk about this. He would play 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. That's it. And of course he'd perform, shows and teach and that kind of thing. But he'd wake up and he'd play for 2 hours, and before he'd go to bed, he'd play for 2 hours. Yeah. He lived into his 90s. And I remember, like when I was probably like 20, looking at that lifestyle, I was like, that's what I want to do. This is a guy who committed to his instrument for 90 years or 80 years. He died a guitarist.
Yeah.
How great is that?
Yeah. Yeah, there are definitely many different kinds of musicians out there. And there's no one better than the other. It's just how you incorporate music into your life and how you love it and live it. It's there's no right or wrong. There really isn't.
Yeah, and I think something I even kind of wrote about not too recently, that when students come in, they say, like, how long will it take to get good? I really do tell them, I said, that's the wrong question. You shouldn't be thinking about how long it's going to take. I mean, where are you right now, and kind of get into where you are right now and learn what you can, because before you know it, you're playing. I mean, think about, all the lessons you guys have taught or lessons you have taken. I know for me, it literally, guys, felt like an overnight transformation. I don't know how it happened that way. I was like, one evening I went to bed and I had no command. Woke up next morning, I played, and it was easier. And I'm like, I'm playing. This is really cool. How does this happen? That for me, I guess, is just a physiological thing in your body. You just got used to it. The 10,000 hours thing, maybe it happened. But if you continually worry about when that step is going to happen, and that's a killer.
Yeah,
you'll never
wrong focus.
It's
wrong focus. Yeah, it really is.
You got to enjoy it.
Yeah,
you got to enjoy the process.
It's not about the destination; it's about the journey.
True. Or Satriani says, at the end of the day, you're making music. Don't forget that too.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't be all technique and, forget that it's not the fingers, but what's coming out of the fingers. And that was a huge lesson for me. I mean, even up to a few years ago, I'm still going in that method of like, okay, I'm going to pick something up and write. No. I mean, actually you should hear it first,
right?
Hear what you're trying to achieve, audiate that, and then pick up the instruments and try to get it as close as you can that way. But for me, I was backwards for many years. But again, my point is that backwards thinking of like instrument first got me to where I needed to go technically. So it's this weird irony. This weird irony.
Well, yeah. So you have to get to this. You have to get to a certain point of proficiency before you're like, oh, what the hell am I gonna do with this now, kind of thing. And then I think like once I got decent enough at the guitar, I'm kind of like, well, there's no way in hell I'm gonna be a virtuoso player. But I'm like, I'm not interested in that really. It's like, you know.
Yeah, I disagree with the first part. I agree with the second. I think no, I'm serious. I really do think anybody can be virtuosic. I do believe that with the right amount of time. If you wanted to be a virtuoso, you could do it. If you put the time in for it.
Put the time, okay.
Put the time in it and practice the right way. But the point is, would you want to be?
Right.
Yeah.
Is that your goal?
Is that right?
I think that's what I realized. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, and if it's not your goal, then that, you know, that's okay. You have to kind of think about, okay, if I'm not going to be a virtuoso, it's like kind of what I was talking about like last week. I knew that from a young age, I was not going to be virtuosic in my playing, and that was okay by me. I didn't care.
Why did you feel that way though?
Why did I feel that way? Because it didn't come to me as quickly as I saw others picking it up. This is my initial thought. Is that I saw others being able to play the guitar at a much faster and easier pace. They seemed to just kind of get it under their fingers a lot easier than I did. For me, it was a long, drawn out process. I put the hours in, but I was not getting the results that everybody else was. For some odd reason, just the way my brain was functioning, it just didn't work the same way. And I was okay by that. That was at an early age, that was not my goal, is to be proficient and awesome at it, because I knew that I wasn't going to be. I knew that the hours that I was spending in it were not going to produce that Satriani sound.
So do you think then that, I mean, this is important for students to understand. Do you think that it's possible to practice a lot and, you know, and just not become a virtuoso?
Yes.
Okay.
I can't see Pink Floyd being just
virtuoso. Yeah.
Right. I can't see that. I can't see him being Steve Vai. I mean, I just can't. I don't see that no matter how much he practiced. I can't see that actually happening. And that was my kind of approach is that I will practice to the best of my ability. I will be as good as I can. And I'm okay with that. I'm happy with that. I love what I'm producing. I think what comes out of me is awesome.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
right.
You know, and that's the attitude that I've always had is I'm not going to be like those guys. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. That's not a problem with me. Would I like to be there? No.
Yeah. See,
I think that I would. I don't. Would I like to be there? No. Would I like to be a little bit better than I am? Sure, but that doesn't matter. Again, it's being happy with yourself as the musician.
I agree. And the Russians have, the martial artists have a saying that they go through all their work to say, never feel sorry for yourself. It's this attitude where, you know, no matter where you are in terms of your proficiency levels and your technique, you can't get down and say, okay, well, that means I'm never going to get any better. You have to accept where you are at the time and keep pushing to just evolve. And for me, I love that approach. I absolutely love that ideology of saying, okay, like this is where I am right now, and I want to just continue to work, and I'm gonna enjoy. I'm just going to enjoy being the artist I am at this point, you know, and not worried about comparing myself to others, you know, and that kind of thing. See, I go slightly the other way, though. I think it is possible for any player to achieve a certain level of virtuosity. I do. I've seen it. I've seen it in my students. I was not a great player out of the gate, guys. You know, in fact, I sucked for the first 6 years. But when I adopted a practicing method that really worked for me, then my sort of, it just, the momentum got me there, you know? And so I mean, I hear what you're saying. Truly, I get it. I think that there are certain styles of attack, you know, that lend itself to virtuosity, right? Like, yeah, Gilmour's very slow, you know, but it works for him stylistically, right? But if you take him and let's say Gilmour said, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to adopt a virtuosic playing style, he would get somewhere along that pathway. Mark Tremonti, the guy from Alter Bridge,
yeah, Alter Bridge.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay, he was doing an interview once, and after he came out of Creed, and because when he went to the first Alter Bridge album, the first Alter Bridge album, he was like doing some shred work, you know.
Yeah.
And so that said to him, said, "What did you do? Because you weren't playing this on Creed." He says, "Yeah." He goes, "I just decided after the Creed days, I was going to start practicing a lot more." And I think he said somewhere like 8-9 hours a day he was playing. And then on the Alter Bridge records, now he's doing like these shred licks. So I think there is a certain degree of you can evolve in technical proficiency.
No for sure. If you have a vision, if you have a goal, like, it kind of goes back in the beginning when Aaron was talking about sweep picking, and I'm literally the same page as you. Like, I think I always wanted to learn that, be proficient, but I've never the style I'm in right now it really wouldn't work. But who knows? Like, if there might be a song where I might, you know, this might work if I throw them the sweep, and then I focus and I actually put in the time and then get good at sweep picking.
Yeah.
That could happen. You don't know.
Yeah,
you know, it could be something.
Yeah, like you said, Tony, I think it comes down to your practice regimen. I think if you put in the time and have a very good, if everything is scheduled and everything is structured on a daily basis for many, many, many hours, and you're focused in all of those hours, I absolutely think that you can and will take your level of guitar playing or any instrument playing beyond where you can even think that you can go. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I do. I think that's goes without saying, honestly. I agree with that. I just don't know that. It probably comes down to the fact that although I was focused, I was not focused enough. I had too many things that I was interested in at the time, whether that was actually just listening to music, because I just love to listen to music. That's just one of my favorite things to do, especially at that age, to sit down with an album and just listen for hours. Or maybe it was composition, maybe because at an early age I was writing. I mean, out of the gate from when I started guitar, I was writing music. So my focus was on a lot of different areas versus just sitting down with my guitar for many, many hours a day and just playing. Now that did happen. I definitely went through that process of playing for 6, 7, 8 hours a day for long periods of time. But I do know that in addition to that, that my focus was on other areas. And maybe had I focused absolutely on the technical area, maybe I would have been better.
Well, let me say this, Altan. I mean, I worked with you for many years, and it's interesting to watch you evolve, right? Aaron, I haven't listened to you play in years because, you know, the time that passed between State College and all that kind of stuff. But I listened to that Traveler Loop 16 track a couple days ago. And first of all, just awesome track, you know. But I was listening to like the little details in your playing work. You have like progressed amazingly as a player since the early days. I mean, just the control. Listen to those riffs. Altan, if you get a chance, check that track out.
It's real. Aaron, you guys send me that, man.
Yeah, but like I'm listening
to
listen to Aaron's control and how he hits inside the fret spaces and the movement. Like everything's tight. I loved it.
Well, it's gonna be really fun for me because I don't know how Aaron sounds. So
no. Okay, so I will say this for you and the audience. I will say this straight now, and the reason why I'm a little bit bashful about this is because the Traveler Loop 16 is not what I write in any way whatsoever. It was a project. It was
great though.
It was a fun project that that I wanted to do. I wanted to get it out of my system. It's complete like, wow, okay, this is not what I was expecting. If you really want to get an idea of what I write, check out the Kairos Quintet and check out the song Dawn.
Okay.
That would be a much better
representation
of what I do. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. In terms of where I was 10 years, a decade ago from now, I think my the way I approach the guitar is much different. From back then when I was playing with you, Tony, I was going through this stage of just learning how to play the guitar and how to approach my instrument. I didn't have a command over my instrument like I do now. I certainly didn't know my neck, that's for sure. Now going through, teaching for many years, I have to, and I'm very aware of, I have to know where I am. I have to know where all the notes are. I have to know how to build chords. I have to know what I'm playing. I have to, that way I can kind of teach somebody. And if they have questions about what's going on, that I can kind of portray and tell them exactly what's going on within the music and why I'm getting the sounds that I am, and how I'm attacking the strings, or why I'm keeping such a close, this localization, me making sure that everything is extremely close to the guitar and keeping my fingers specifically focusing on my left hand and making sure my fingers aren't coming away from the guitar all the time, especially like these two fingers. Always try to keep them hovering over the frets. And when you do press down on the fretboard, make sure that you are you have to go through that process of getting the strength in your left hand fingers. Yes, that's extremely hard, and you have to go through that process of maybe even get one of those squeezy things and build up the strength. But then you get to the point in your guitar playing where you actually don't use any strength in your left hand. You're just pushing the string down just enough that you actually make contact with the string, or with the fret rather, because if you press any further, like you said, you start getting a detuning of the string. You want to have the command over over the guitar, and that's all learned through these many, many, many years.
Agreed.
So yeah, it's a huge, like I said, going all the way back to the beginning, it is a long
never stops
journey. No,
it's always evolving. I got to run, guys, but I want to thank Altan for coming and doing this today. Great stuff, man.
Altan, do you have any? Do you have a website or a band website that you'd like to promote?
So I'm in the band Never Elected. We got our album Down Too Long that's on Spotify, iTunes, Apple.
Oh, very cool.
And then my singers get pissed off at me if I don't get but this on Google Play and a couple other platforms. You can find it. It's even on YouTube. I think it's you can find anywhere. Then Never Elected band, Facebook, Bandcamp.
Very cool, man.
Awesome. Check them out.
Cool. We will.
Awesome.
Fret Buzzers, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Gentlemen, we'll talk this week.
We will.
Okay.
Awesome. Yes.
All right, guys. Have a good week.
Yeah, have a good one.
Bye-bye. See you all later.
Yep.
I just told my kids to stop jumping before we came down here, and I'm hearing thumping upstairs.
Stop jumping up there!
And because like every recording, I listen back to it. We need T-shirts, guys. You know that? We need them. We absolutely need the T-shirts. I actually thought about the one I was going to have, like I am buzzing, but I thought it'd be inappropriate.
Not really. I mean, well,
it depends on where I wear it. Yeah. You wear it to class.
Yeah, monkeys.
Gives me hope. If they're evolving, I might be okay.
Right.
I got to go on record and say this now, okay?
What?
Please stop playing that song for Christmas. Okay, Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen is not a Christmas tune. It is not a Christmas tune. So people, please stop putting on your Christmas rotations. Okay, I'm done. Do you notice I've turned my pillow around, Aaron?
No, I haven't.
Look at it.
That's hilarious. Bring Thankful back. Bring Thankful back.
I'll get some heat for that tomorrow. You know the organ grinder monkeys?
What? What?